So my name is Michael Clare. I'm here in Salt Lake City. Today is November 12th, 2019. And what I'm showing here behind me is this, what the video is about is this controversy that's been brewing about a land purchase. We just had elections for mayor, and Aaron Mendenhall was elected as mayor here in Salt Lake City. And about a month ago, an issue came up about some shady land deals that was going on between her husband and her. And so anyways, we looked into it and found out that there was indeed a land deal going on, a public land deal between the city and involved her and her husband. And this is the part of the street that's behind me. It's 800 West, about 150 South in Salt Lake City. Actually, it's about 50 South in Salt Lake City. And so this is the property that her husband bought. She voted to sell it, was involved in that, which is contrary to the ethics ordinance here in Salt Lake City. So anyways, I'm going to do kind of work out a timeline. There's going to be probably part 1 and part 2 to this video. Part 1 is just a timeline of how this developed and how we ended up at the place that we're at now. When residents or citizens, I should say, started finding out about this about 3 weeks ago, we were told, number 1, there's a news blackout on it, so the media is not even going to cover it. And then number 2, we were just informed by the city that an investigation was done and that there was no wrongdoing. So we've just did a grammar request to get copies of that investigation. And so we're waiting for the results of that to see how it is that the ethics ordinance in Salt Lake City was violated by the newly elected mayor who was on the city council. And so this is just part 1. It's just a timeline of how where we're at today and how we got here. All right, I'm going to transition over to this PowerPoint presentation and kind of give a quick timeline of how this whole public land purchase went down and how we arrived at where we're at today. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, this is the ethics ordinance here in Salt Lake City. And it says here that the purpose of this chapter is to prevent improper influence, avoid the appearance of impropriety, and prohibit public servants from receiving unjust financial gain from public service. It also seeks to increase the public confidence by assuring the governmental actions the governmental actions were taken ethically and in compliance with all applicable procedures. And that's why I want to bring this up, because it doesn't engender any kind of confidence that this was done appropriately. And so then the next part of this ethics ordinance talks about here in this area that it says that a public servant who has a financial interest shall disqualify herself from participating in any deliberations as well as from voting on such matters. And then it says that the disclosure statement shall be entered into the minutes of the public body. There's also another aspect of this in the ethics ordinance that says that you have to declare it in writing every January, and I'll go over that. But basically, if we can just go back historically to 2012, and what happened in 2012 is when Kyle LaMalfa was sworn into the city council, and then in 2013, Aaron Mendenhall ran for city council in District 5. And then Kyle was in District 1. She's running in District 5. And then in 2014, she did win the election in 2013. And then in 2015, she's sworn into office. This is a picture of her and her former husband. And then in short order, there's rumor flying that same year, that in 2014, in September, the fall of that year, that her and another council member, Kyle LaMalfa, had an affair and were, dating each other and all kinds of stuff. And they went on this trip that the city paid for, and it was just those two from the city council. And apparently, it wasn't even on the schedule. It was not one of the approved trips by the city council, but in a prior meeting they suggested that they should go. So the city sent them, and then they had apparently had an affair. And then in November of 2014, the City Weekly broke the story that sources confirmed that 2 Salt Lake City members involved in the affair, and then later on the Tribune caught up to what was going on and wrote the story. And interestingly enough, it says here that the romantic relationship between Salt Lake City council members raises concerns, and it did at the time, just as it raises concerns today. But when we get up to today, I'll tell you what the problem is today. In 2015, it's Kyle's last year to serve on his 4-year term. He doesn't run for re-election, and the Deseret News reports that he's giving up the seat for the relationship with Aaron. While he was still on the council, he ends up applying in August of 2015. He files a petition to purchase the street that you saw at the beginning of this video, and then this is an overview of what it has, what the property is that he wants to buy from the city, and it's and then this kind of gives you a picture of the ones in yellow over here in this area. That's the properties that he owns. He was land banking them, which isn't unusual, and then he now wants to purchase this property. City property is in the red, and that's what is at question here. And then in 2015, the same year, she gets, I don't know when she got a divorce, but she marries Kyle LaMaffa, and they're both still on the city council for another 2 months. He is. And then in January, he's no longer on the council. In 2016, he's not on the council. She is. And because he was in the process of trying to buy public property, and she just married the man, by ordinance, she should have filed a conflict of interest disclosure statement, and she didn't do it. And so nobody from the public knows that hasn't, that she has a conflict, which she was required by ordinance to declare. This is just showing what the application process was for buying the street, what it went through. And then in 2017, again, she was obligated to file a conflict of interest, and this is what it says. Conflict of interest is a disclosure statement. She failed to do so, and so here we go, another year where he's in the process of purchasing this land, but she doesn't feel obligated to follow the ordinance and declare it. And then in 2018, she gets reelected to the city council, and then finally we see a disclosure statement is now filed, and so now she's comporting herself to the law. And right here you'll see this Renee Properties. Now here's the problem: Renee Properties is a fictitious company. It doesn't exist in the year 2018 when she files this. Kyle is using this fictitious company to go through this process to purchase this public land, but the way they play this little shell game, you would never know that it's these two that are buying it. Apparently people on the city council knew, and the people on the planning commission knew, but nobody, from the public, you wouldn't know. And then you see here in this case that JF Capital Developer is representing the property owners. So from the public standpoint, you don't even know that this is a sitting city councilwoman and her spouse are trying to buy this public property. Then the paperwork continues to have this Renee Property on everything, and this is what they're going by. But again, at the time, this property in 2019 doesn't even exist. So here's the overall chronology. It starts in 2015 when he's on the council, and now that brings us up to this year in 2019. And again, this Renee Property is everywhere on all the documents, but if you were to look up Renee Property at this time, you wouldn't know that Kyle LaMalfa, the wife of a city council member, is the one that's trying to purchase this public land. Then this gives you an overview of what the council is going through that year, and we'll go through that on how they dealt with this issue. Prior to that, in March of this year, Councilwoman Erin Mendenhall announces that she's going to run for mayor. So again, now she has declared this that her husband is trying to buy this property through this company Renee management or property management that doesn't exist in the state of Utah at this point. In the city council meeting on May 21st, 2019, she votes to move the issue forward, which according to the ordinance is illegal. You can't vote or deliberate on an issue that you're going to financially benefit from. She did. On May 28th, she does declare her conflict of interest, and this picture is not a correct picture. It should show them in the work session, is where she was at. This is in the formal meeting, but in the work session, she does declare her conflict. She just didn't do it. Unfortunately, the violation of the ordinance is that she doesn't do it in this meeting, but indeed votes on it, which is in violation of the ordinance. Then on the next meeting in July 9th, and again, you see this Renee property. If you were to look it up in July of 2019, you wouldn't know that her husband, Column Alpha, owns it because it doesn't even exist legally. It's a fictitious company at this time. And here the council is doing a public hearing on it. And then they're passing an ordinance that they're going to vote on. Oh, and I wanted to say that on this particular meeting, on the one on July 9th, Erin is not there. She's just absent. I think that she had a meeting, and then October 16th, she's not there either. So there's no need for her to declare the conflict. And in these two meetings is where the council had a public hearing, and then in this particular meeting, the council voted to vacate the street. In one of the July meetings that she missed, she just had a meeting with her neighbors at her house, so she didn't have to be at the meeting. No need to declare then the conflict. And then, so this is just an overview of how the council dealt with this thing earlier this year. And then the odd thing is that the briefing, usually they do a briefing, set the date, public hearing. For whatever reason, they reverse these. And they had the briefing, they set the date, and that's where she voted, which was illegal to do. And then they had the briefing. I don't know what that's about. And then in late October, she's in a debate, and they asked her, it was Doug Wright on KSL, asked her, do you have any conflict of interest? She said that she does not, which was bizarre. Then following that, on October 17th, Kyle goes and now he's going to register the company. After the Planning Commission and the City Council, including her wife, who voted on one of the votes, approves this process to vacate the street, Kyle's now going to go register this company with the state of Utah, which to me is very shady. That now it gets registered. So now if you look it up, you're going to find out that he owns it. That he owns this company that just has now been approved by the city council and the mayor to purchase this public street, which is, to me, very unethical. The day following that he registers his company and makes it legal, Erin writes this thing in Facebook, and she puts here, I don't know, this is on her campaign page, I don't know from where it will come, but this week I've heard specific rumors about another misleading attack coming in the next few days designed to trick voters. And what I'm explaining to you right now is what she's talking about. This shady land deal of buying public land in a nefarious way, that's the thing that's going to trick voters if it comes out. And basically what happens here is, Renee Properties was a fictitious company until 3 weeks ago. And it was an entity that it disguises, that her personal interest, that her and her husband are purchasing this property. And everything that I just explained, I found out about it. People were whispering about it and the October 24th, 2019 mayoral debate here in my neighborhood, and I went and researched it and found out from the public record what I just outlined. And then the other interesting thing that I'll have to cover in part two is there was a media blackout on this. Like nobody in the media could talk about it. And then people from the city, like Councilman Wharton and the communications director, Mullen from the city, are saying that, yeah, this was investigated and that nothing was wrong. That the investigation that was done by the city attorney and the mayor, the current mayor, Biskupski, determined that nothing unethical occurred. So I just did a grammar request for that, and we'll see what that says. Mendenhall won the mayor's race, and she's now the mayor, or will be in January, and I'm very concerned about that because it was my hope that the new mayor would put a stop to a lot of the corruption that's going on right now in the city. And now here we have a mayor that I don't have a lot of confidence is going to address the corruption that's going on in the city if she's okay with getting into office and not disclosing her conflicts of interest. And this was last Thursday, Brian Malahy from Channel 2 News that actually mentioned this issue. And when he asked her point blank, about how she was going to address this, she said there is no conflict. So that's what we're dealing with, and I'm just putting it out there, making a video of it, because I think that voters were, didn't have all the information when they went to the ballot box because for whatever reason, there was a media blackout on this issue, and nobody and the media wanted to cover it. And then the story is there's nothing wrong here, nothing, no unethical behavior. So that's not what I see when I look at read the ordinance for myself and compare it to the public record and the actions that I saw happening and that I just outlined.